This week's quick reminder starts in James chapter 5, verse 1. Come now, you rich, weep and howl for your miseries which are coming upon you. Your riches have rotted, and your garments have become moth-eaten. Your gold and your silver have rusted, and their rust will be a witness against you, and will consume your flesh like fire. It is the last days that you have stored up your treasure. Behold, the pay of the laborers who mowed your fields, and which has been withheld by you, cries out against you. And the outcry of those who did the harvesting has reached the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth. You have lived luxuriously on the earth, and led a life of wanton pleasure. You have fattened your hearts in a day of slaughter. You have condemned and put to death the righteous man. He does not resist you. Who are you trusting? Are you hoarding or serving? Stephen Davey illustrates this in pointing to an article from Forbes magazine on how to become a billionaire. And in it, we find if you're a professional, and that means if you're middle class, then you are looking to make everyone happy and to get a fair deal. But if you want to be super rich, make sure you win. We begin the reading today with the phrase, come now. I think this is a continuation, a bridging of what he has already said with what he's about to say. So in chapter 4, verse 17, he says, therefore, to one who knows the right thing to do and does not do it, to him it is sin. Come now. So in other words, all right then, so let's deal with this. I have found that there are some who don't believe that James is addressing believers in the beginning of chapter 5, but I lean the other way. I think because from chapter 1, verse 1, all the way up to chapter 4, verse 17, it's clear that he is talking to believers, and I think so now he's making an application. Now he's addressing something specifically with them. And he says to them that they need to weep and howl. Now, there's a similar wording used back in chapter 4 and verse 9 when we read, be miserable and mourn and weep. Let your laughter be turned to mourning and your joy to gloom. There we said he was telling the believer to recognize what is true of you in the flesh and deal with it. And I think the same idea is coming across here, to recognize the truth and the reality of your selfishness that is, he says, coming upon you in verse 1. It's been pointed out that this phrase, which is coming upon you, communicates the certainty of God keeping man accountable for his actions, not only with regards to, some day at the judgment, but also presently, right now. Paul points out in Galatians 6 and verse 7, in the context of not keeping what you should be sharing, he says, for whatever a man sows, this he will also reap. This is certainty. We can count on this. And the rich in this chapter have hoarded what they have obtained. They do this believing that there's security to be found in these things. We know that in chapter 4, verses 1 to 3, this is the reason there's a quarrel. The reason there's fighting among them is because of their own pleasures, for what they want, for what they lust, to be used for their pleasures. And so they're trying to find security in these things. And their hoarding has just been proven to be useless because all of it has become worthless, according to our passage in verses 1 to 3. They've rusted. They've become rotten. They're not worth anything. It reminds me of the words of Jesus in Matthew 6, verses 19 to 21, where he says, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves do not break in or steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The rich in this chapter have hurt others and not loved them, according to verses 4 to 6. Therefore, they're not showing a love for God. Now, how can I put those two things together? Well, Jesus says in Matthew chapter 22, verses 37 to 40, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the great and foremost commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments depend the whole law and the prophets. The law being the image of God. And these two things, without these two things, the image of God cannot be seen. There must be a love for God, and from that comes a love for brethren. I don't think we can love the brethren unless we truly love God with all our heart, with all our soul, with all our mind. And when this is not seen, it shows where our true allegiance lies, where our true worship lies. And these rich are worshiping themselves. In Genesis chapter 3, verse 5, we see the phrase when Satan comes and tempts Eve, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God. And isn't that really at the heart of all of our problems? We don't want God to be God. We want ourselves to be in control. Christ explains that the opposite is to be true if we're going to walk in relationship with him. He says in Luke 9:23, if anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. The Lord's looking for those who will live this way. In James 4, verse 6, but he gives a greater grace. Therefore it says, God is opposed to the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Again, we know from chapter 2 that this grace is only possible for man through faith in Jesus Christ. It's not possible by self-determination because according to this passage, it's self-determination that gets us into this predicament. What are you hoarding? It's been pointed out that there's a difference between saving and hoarding. Saving is a practice whereby we, by trusting the Lord, putting something away to be used in the future according to how the Lord would have us use it. That's being a good steward. Hoarding is the practice of hiding things away for myself. That's being a bad steward. It's practicing faith in you, placing your dependence on something other than God. This is the opposite of what we have and are to know in Christ. Philippians 2:3-5, do nothing from selfishness or empty conceit, but with humility of mind regard one another as more important than yourselves. Do not merely look out for your own personal interests, but also for the interests of others. Have this attitude in yourselves, which was also in Christ Jesus. In Colossians 2:8, see to it that no one takes you captive through philosophy and empty deception, according to the tradition of men, according to the elementary principles of the world, rather than according to Christ. Don't adopt the world's way of thinking and how you will manage your possessions, your wealth, the things that you have. But what? Be taken captive with Christ and his management of your life and what you have. Are you hoarding or serving? My name is Kelly Daugherty, and I'm the host of the His Hill podcast. This has been a quick reminder of that ministry. We also post longer episodes once a week, so make sure to listen in on those as well. If you'd like to get in touch with me, you can do so by email. The address is Kelly, Kelly, @hishill.org. Thanks for listening. And remember, keep your eyes fixed on Jesus.